Hello, Rob. You're up next and last.
How's it going today?
How's it going, Rob? Where are you playing out of?
I am playing out of Encore Boston Harbor.
Encore Boston Harbor, a place that I will frequent weekly, although I'm not going in there this week as I'm going to LA. And is this a 2-5 game?
It is 2-5, 1K cap.
Yep, I am very.
I've never seen you there. I play on Sundays primarily. So
Sunday afternoons, or?
I usually go in the morning and play till the evening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm usually in there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I mean, I tell my buddy, the firefighter from Somerville, Josh, I've never been in it's incredible how good that 2-5 game is, especially when 5-10 is running. It is a limp fest. There's a very high rake with all like the promos and stuff, but
I didn't want to go play. I used to play Foxwoods a lot, but I didn't want to go there because of the rake, but the games have just been too good.
Yeah.
So I'm there now.
How deep are you for this one?
I am the effective stack at 955.
955 effective. Okay. Yep.
And we're 8-handed for this one.
8-handed. Okay.
All right. And so under the gun limps.
Yep.
+1 makes it 20.
Okay.
And I'm in the low jack with Ace of Clubs, King of Hearts.
Ace of Clubs, King of Hearts in the low jack. Okay. I hope you're going to 3-bet it here.
And I make it 60.
All right. So hero 3-bets to 60.
Probably a little small.
Yeah. I usually make it I mean, I usually make it larger here. You know, you say you're 955 effective, I assume, from the +1 guy. You got one limp in there. I just like to make it large with like better hands. I usually go at least to 4x. Now you're in position, and I mean, I don't think it's like some sort of glaring mistake. It's just, it's more of a value proposition for me in these games.
Even from the +1 with the early raise from the +1, that was my concern.
I mean, you have ace king, you know?
No, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you 3-bet it. You 3-bet, I don't think it's a huge mistake, but all right. So you 3-bet to 60. Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it folds to the button who cold calls.
Button cold calls.
Yes.
And then what do the other two people do in front?
They both call.
The under the gun limp calls the 3-bet cold.
Yeah, this guy, I know this guy. I played enough with him. He'll limp call anything. So when I made it 60, I thought I was going to be playing heads up. Well, 3-way, excuse me, in position to those two.
Oh, yeah. So you were like, so you wouldn't necessarily ISO the +1 guy light because you think the limper's going to cold call anyways.
Yes, 100%.
So 4 ways, right? Four ways in a 3-bet pot. So the pot is $240, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, let's go to the flop.
All right, the flop is the Ace of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, 7 of Clubs.
Ace of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, Ace of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, 7 of Clubs. Hero has Ace of Clubs, King of Hearts, right? You got the Ace of Clubs in your hand.
Yep.
Okay.
So both the under the gun and the +1 check to me in flow.
Yep.
And because it was multi-way, I went on the small side. I bet 1/3. I bet 80 into the 240.
So hero goes 80 into 240.
Yep.
Okay,
even
so
with the flushes and the 2 Broadway cards out there, I don't know if that's right or not.
I would treat this, even though it's a 3-bet pot, and even though multi-way theory would be, well, how often are you going to get in a 4-way pot, right? Like in a 3-bet. But what I would treat this as like almost like looking at the theory of like a single raise pot multi-way. The theory says you're supposed to go small, where in fact, when I'm looking at the types of boards where I go 2/3 or more, it's going to be on these 2 flush, 2 Broadway boards here, where you're usually going to get the most action. And because you've got ace king here, you've got the best of it unless somebody outflopped you with like 2 pair. Now you do have the ace of clubs in your hand, so it's not like someone is going to have the nut flush draw. But the other thing though to be said with this though is that you don't even really need to build the pot up that much. I mean, when you made it 60, you only have like 885. Like if you get a couple of calls here, if you go 80 and then it goes call, the pot's going to be like 400 and you're going to have 800 left. I would have gone 150 here, even in a 3-bet pot, 150 or more, 150 to 200. I kind of like 150, 160 off the top, just because like, I don't think, again, it's like one of these things is like, what is 80 trying to accomplish here, Rob, as opposed to like 160?
See, at the time, I don't know. I think I wasn't sure what. My biggest concern in this hand was the button, the cold call from the button, and what he would have been cold calling with.
Mm-hmm. So it's more of like an auto bet that you sort of
sort of, yeah, and trying to see where I'm at. I figured any one of them could be holding ace jack. I don't think jacks is out there. Sevens are possible, but those are maybe an ace seven suited. But there's not too much I'm really that concerned about. But I know I have a strong hand there, but I just wasn't sure how.
It's funny that you say like, we don't. I know you said like you kind of you're sort of finding out where you're at, and you don't really want to bet to find out where you're at. But I will say though that I can actually almost sort of, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm actually interpreting the way that you're saying this, and you're not saying it in the type of language that I'm going to say it in, but it makes sense, is that you have a situation where the button has cold called you here, where you know that he might have like jack here a lot. Somebody might have 7-7. And even though like you hold the quote unquote nut advantage, probably having the only one having ace, you're actually making kind of a bet that might reflect that somebody else might actually have a nut advantage. And when you have that type of situation, you're actually supposed to bet kind of small. And the reason why I'm interpreting that from you is because you don't have ace. And really what you're like, oh, I don't want to go crazy here because I know that jack and 7-7 could be in the range here of what's gone on pre-flop. Is that
Exactly
somewhat accurate? Okay, that's what I felt. That's what I thought you meant when you said that. I would still tend to go larger here and just kind of take like a robust like bet full style. But okay, so you go 80. Okay, yep.
And the button calls, and the other two fold.
All right, so the button calls next to act.
Yep.
And then it goes fold. So that next to act call is definitely strong. It should be strong, right? Because he's got the other two guys left, obviously, to act, behind him. Pot now is 400. So when you think of a range of hands here that the button might have, right? Cold calling your 3-bet pre, and then calling here next to act on ace of diamonds, jack of clubs, 7 of clubs. What kind of range here do you think he arrives at the turn with?
This was my difficulty in the hand because I was very confused because I wasn't sure what those hands were, because I would have thought with two people behind him, any real big value would have raised me there.
Like 2 pair plus.
Yeah, exactly. So if he doesn't have that, then I'm thinking flush draws.
Okay.
Pair plus flush draw, pair plus backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, something like it.
How about just like an ace? What about like ace 10 suited or like ace queen?
I thought that was definitely a possibility. I had ace jack in my head as well, but I thought I would have heard from ace jack already. Not necessarily, but
right. Well, so that's what I'm saying. So if we just say, I'm not necessarily saying that's always the case, but if I agree with what you said, which was like 2 pair plus is going to raise off here, right? Then we're left with flush draws, right? And then other ace X. Well, but I mean, ace queen is something that seems reasonable that somebody might call a 3-bet with. Ace 10 suited, I don't know how far down the line it goes, right? With ace 9 suited. Now, I will just say that it wouldn't shock me. Like if I don't even know what, totally don't have any idea what's coming here with these. Cause I remember I was too concentrated on Kenny because I watched the previous one with the Lodge one. But like if the guy had jack here, I don't think he's always raising. Put it that, but there's probably some frequency. It's just like if a guy flats with jack and then he flops middle set, he's thinking it's slow playing or something like that. So it wouldn't shock me, at the end here, if one of the hands he shows up with is jack, and we've been like, oh, we would have thought he would raise with that 100% of the time. I'm like, that wouldn't shock me. But I think you're looking good here, though, for sure. So the pot here, I mean, I'd feel good. The pot here is 400.
The only thing I will say about him is that he hadn't played a lot of hands and he played them fairly aggressively. So this was a surprising play for me. I think with jack, possibly even ace queen, he might 4-bet that. But I don't know that. I don't have enough information really to.
Instead of flat call pre, you mean?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So your heads up, the pot's 400 here, right? Yeah. 80. All right. Oh, what's the turn?
The turn is the 5 of clubs.
Okay. The turn's the 5 of clubs. So it brings the front door in, but you have the ace of clubs, king of hearts, and you guys have about just over 800 here moving to the turn.
Yeah, I get myself at 815 at that time.
Yeah, 815. So, I mean, when you look at the types of hands that somebody cold calls with, like 3-bet, now I have seen people call with like mid suited connectors and stuff like that, but usually if someone's going to have a flush here that's cold called off, it's going to be either ace X of clubs, which is not possible because you have the ace of clubs, or it's going to be like king, queen of clubs, king 10 of clubs, queen 10 of clubs, something like that. So that's really only like 3 specific types of hands. Now you have ace king, so there's 2 aces accounted for, but there's 2 left. So there's still like 8 combos of ace queen left. If we're doing again, really very easy to do the combos is you just look at, there's 1 on board, there's 1 in Rob's hand, so there's 2 left, and there's all the queens are left. So there's 8 combos of ace queen left, 8 combos of ace queen, and then like there's only 1 combo of king queen of clubs, there's only 1 combo of king 10 of clubs, there's only 1 combo of queen 10 of clubs. And then maybe he's got like some ace 10s and stuff like that too. I think you're also a little bit protected by the fact that you have the ace of clubs here in your hand. So it's just not one of these, you don't have to check here, I guess is my point. It's not necessarily like an auto check. I don't think checking is necessarily terrible. But now if it goes check on the turn though, you need to blast away on a brick river. What did you do here?
This is the main reason why I called is that when the front door flush came in, even with the ace of clubs, I felt good about my hand, but at the same time, I was still leery of whatever he was playing, what he was cold calling with. So I checked to him.
Okay. Like I said, like I think that's probably a sort of a reflex play that a lot of people might make, but I would still probably tend to bet with things that I just talked about before you told me that you check. So okay, so you check, and
if you did bet there, but what would you go? What would you go there?
I would. So you guys have 800 left. If you bet 2, pot would be 800, and you have 6 left. I might go 225 to 250 here, something like that. 225 to 250. I just don't know if like ace X. The reason why it's just I think a value play for me is just because anybody who cold calls, if we're in a situation here where we're set up where we think he's going to be raising 2 pair of Petter on the flop, and when you take a look at what a normal sort of cold call to a 3-bet pre-flop range looks like that contains ace X, it's going to be ace queen, ace 10 suited. And then if he's got the other ace king, you have the ace of clubs. You're free rolling on him. But it's a very important part of that, what we think about if he's not sandbagging stuff on the flop. So I would be kind of happy to go like 225, something like that. But okay, so you check.
Well, just real quick, I got this vibe that if I was going to bet, he was going to jam on me, and then I'd snap it off, and then we would have been there. But so I went with the check. I don't have a good rationale other than I want to see where he was at again.
I don't know about betting and snapping off a jam though. I don't know when a lot of those hands would have just called. So what did he do?
Yeah, so I checked, and he bet 225.
He bet 225. So the button bets 225. Now, what I would be looking at here is, do I have stacked up to call and check and evaluate? So if you make this call, the pot's going to be 850. You guys will have 550 or so.
590 behind.
If you make the call, you'll have 590 behind?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the pot will be like 850. You'll have like 590 behind. So, I mean, you definitely have stack depth to just call here. And it's interesting because, I mean, I think you're going to check the river. Here's the thing. Like if you call, okay, and the river's a blank and you check the river and he jams, from what I've seen in this game, I can't imagine how you have the best hand. Because if you picture this, if you call, and again, the pot's going to be like 850, and let's say the river's like a deuce of hearts, and you check, and he jams for 600, he's never jamming anything that's worse than your hand, right? Ever. And you look at this and you're like, well, could he, what if he's bluffing? Look at the action on the flop, right? You've got a 4-way pot in a 3-bet situation where he flat called 3 bets pre, and he called next to act on the flop with 2 guys behind. There's just no bluffs. So you could make a case here where you're like sort of check calling and kind of hoping, playing a little bit of what I would say like is a 5th Street chicken game here in CLP terminology, where you check call with turn pot odds and you sort of hope it goes check, check. But you also have equity to improve though, too, if you're behind, which is also
I wasn't too concerned because I did still have the ace of clubs.
So you could be behind here. Like say he had ace five suited and he just outturned you. You've got equity against that to improve. So you've got a little bit of backup. But I'm just saying, like, if you check call and then there's like a clean river and then he jams, it's a little bit dicey, but it can very well go check, check. Now, I suppose you could make a case here, although I think it might be a little bit too thin, is if you thought the guy would call you with worse right now on the turn, I suppose you could make a case because you're not really concerned about flushes that much because of the 3-bet pre and the cold call that you could supposedly check jam turn here. And maybe he like finds a call with like ace queen off with the queen of clubs. Starts to get, or ace king with the king of clubs, right? You got ace king with the ace of clubs. So you only get called by ace king with the king of clubs or ace queen with the with the queen of clubs. It's very, very close. Normally, I wouldn't do that. Normally, I would call and evaluate. So,
Which is what I did.
So hero calls.
I entertained. I just something about the ace queen made me think that he would have 4-bet that. I just all had that in my head.
Pre-flop, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I wasn't sure. So I figured I called, and I called relatively quickly to play a little Fifth Street chicken.
And well, let me ask you this question. So what happens if a club comes at the end here? Like the deuce of clubs.
Then I bet.
You do bet. You lead?
Yeah, I lead.
And it's interesting in that spot because
I want to get the value. I don't know what's going to...
Yeah. You don't know if he checks behind like the queen of clubs, right? Like I feel like at this level, you'll get called way more. You will get called by hands that will check back, and people won't turn things into bluffs. Because you look at this and like you check call and then you're going to lead like a fourth club. Like, isn't that like a little bit unbalanced? And I mean, you probably have to have some leads anyways on 4 flush boards. But the issue though at this level is that, when you sort of back into a big hand, you can check and the assumption is you're not going to lose value because your opponent should be betting like second best hands because you've checked to him and he doesn't know that you have the nuts. And then there's a portion of hands that he's supposed to sort of turn into a bluff. That doesn't happen at this level. So you have to sort of no lock the fact that you just have to come out and bet. You know what I'm saying? Like you just kind of have to come out and bet. It's the same exact type of situation when like you hold like a set. Like say you hold a set, right? And there's certain sort of action happens where you think the guy's got a flush draw. Like you check raise like a field better with a set and the guy calls, like this guy's got a flush draw. And then the turn comes the flushing card. So you check and the guy bets and you call, right? You think he's got a flush, but you've got equity, right? Like to boat up. And then the river comes and the board pairs. You have to bet because he's going to check behind the flush, but he'll call the bet. So this is the same type of thing. Anyways, 850. You got 590 behind. All right, what's the river here?
The river is the queen of hearts.
Queen of hearts. Oh boy. Why do I say oh boy here now?
Because I think ace queen was definitely... I kept thinking he would 4-bet. At least that's the conclusion.
I understand you think that. I'm saying oh boy because like I think that there is like a bunch of ace queens here, and now that ace queen portion of that hand where you're playing the Fifth Street chicken where you're hoping it just goes check check at the end, right? Like say the river's the deuce of hearts. The river's the deuce of hearts and you check and the guy checks behind. You're like, all right, very good chance I got a winner here, right? Now, you still hope it goes check check, but now if he bets, the whole thing about like him like betting at the end on the deuce of hearts and some people, forgetting to fold or like making a hero look up. Now it's just like, oh God, it's going to be troublesome now because you lose to ace queen as well. So I assume you checked.
I did check, yes.
Okay, so hero checks and
he jammed.
Well,
button jam for my effective stat, which is 590.
Now I don't know what happened here, but you keep saying, well, I think he's gonna 4-bet pre. I thought he was gonna 4-bet pre with the ace queen,
or with jacks as well. I think.
I hope you didn't. I mean, if you came to me and I looked at this hand, like sometimes Michael G will like, text me hands and DMs. He won't tell me the result. I would tell him, I hope you didn't call here, Mike, at the end. That's kind of how I feel about it. What did you do here? What did you end up doing?
I was in the tank for quite a bit. And then I started talking out loud. And I remember saying, You don't have jacks, you don't have queens, ace queen. I think you four. I just started. I finally just said that. I go, my hand's really strong here, and I can't. I couldn't find any bluffs, but I kept going back to the flop, and I couldn't find any really strong hands. I kept going back that I felt like if he had a real thick value, he would have raised me on the flop. And I know you say the ace queen. I couldn't get the ace queen that he wouldn't have four bet with that. And when I said I had a strong hand, he started staring at me. So I just said, I call. And so I called.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you good, and mucked.
So he didn't show you again? Well, he didn't show anything again.
No, I picked up the rest of his stack and walked away.
Wow. I mean, this is what the button mucks. So hero calls. I like I said, I was just guessing by the fact that you kept sort of restating that you thought he was going to 4-bet pre with ace queen, that you might have actually called here at the end. I didn't even know you called. Just from hearing you, but
The reason I kept saying is that the hands that I was initially worried about when he cold called on the pre-flop was ace jack and ace queen. I mean, those were the ones I originally was thinking. So when ace queen came in on the river, I thought I was dead at first, but then I kept thinking that he would have 4-bet it. So that was kind of one of the deciding factors. I don't know if that's theoretically correct.
Here's the other thing too, Rob, that sort of really troubles me about this hand, why I would snap muck it, is because not only did he call next to act on the flop, but when you take a look at like what is a bluff here in a spot like this, like what hands like does he need to bluff? It's mostly going to be comprised of Broadway gut shots on ace jack 7. So king 10, right? King queen. And the problem now, I say problem, is that like king queen and queen 10, they now pair up at the end. Now people say, why is that a problem? It's not a problem if he checks behind and you beat king queen and you beat queen 10. It's a problem if they jam though, because they're paired now, they're gonna check behind. So that's actually a small stakes exploit. Exploit number 15, overfolding when bluffs would be paired. Overfolding when bluffs would be paired. Exploit number 15. This is a really good example of that. The bluffs, the primary bluffs here, I mean, I suppose he could have like 9-10 or something like that. But like what? But how is he calling the turn though? You know what I'm saying? Like 9-10 or 8-9 are gut shots. He's not going to have those hands offsuit that cold call 3-bet cold. That's why I'm thinking like, is it like king queen with like the king of clubs on ace of diamonds, jack of clubs, 7 of clubs? Now he turns. You bet you checked. Excuse me. I'm sorry. You checked. He bet. Okay. Sorry. Wash that out, right? But still, 9, 10, and 8, 9. Okay. So give him like 9, 10, and 8, 9. It wouldn't be possible if you bet the turn, but you check to him, so he more starts the bluff. But the queen is, like I said, it's troublesome because of the fact that those Broadway straight draws now pair, and I think he would check behind. So it's not a call that I would make. It's one of these things where I'm glad you won the hand. I'm glad it worked out for you, but we don't want to be results oriented. So
I botched the hand, so I'm obviously.
Well, I don't think you necessarily. You didn't make like crazy errors throughout the hand. I just wouldn't have called at the end. I would probably do a higher frequency of betting more often than checking on the turn. I probably would have bet larger on the flop based upon that. I mean, these aren't huge mistakes, but I think it's a very, very difficult river to call. But thank you very much for the call, Rob. I appreciate it.